A couple of months ago, I made a video running through the 5 things I disliked the most about my DIY canopy fit out. Made me sound like a real whinger, but it's an idea I've been meaning to revisit for a while now to try and do the flip side of the coin, the 5 things I love the most about the setup. And right now I'm currently camping just north of Perth. I've been here for a few nights and I figured this was the perfect time to make a video like this while it's all still fresh in my mind after just living out of this setup for the past few nights. So let's jump straight into the 5 things I love the most about my DIY canopy fit out. Now, before I get started, if you're new to the channel, this video might come across as a bit egotistical because I did build most of this setup. And now I'm going to run through the 5 things I love the most, but that's definitely not my intention. And I will link in the description down below my video running through the 5 things I dislike the most to try and balance that out. But the main purpose of this video is just let you guys know what's been working well over the past year or so since I built this kitchen fit out, in case you're looking at doing something similar for your setup. So kicking things off with number 1 is the amount of easily accessible bench space there is in this canopy kitchen. And that's mainly thanks to this big slide out bench in the center of the kitchen. This bench is 1 meter long by roughly 40 centimeters deep, and honestly, it is so great for meal prep. I don't think we could ever go back to not having it, or at least having something similar. I actually made a video a couple of years ago listing my 5 camp kitchen must-haves, and a decent amount of bench space was on that list, and it's something I definitely stand by, because it's one of those things you always need more than you expect, and there's nothing worse than when you're in the middle of cooking up a storm and you have to move your chopping boards to make room for your dinner plates to serve on, and then push those to the side so there's room for your sauces and drinks or whatever it is. It's just more is always better when it comes to space. Height wise, it is pretty tall because it has to clear the canopy lip, and there's also a cooker built inside here that I had to make this tall enough to house. So for me, that's perfectly fine. As you can see, I'm quite tall, so this is actually quite a comfortable height for me. Sort of similar to a bar scenario, so it's nice and comfy for leaning on for someone of my height. But for shorter people like Bianca, my partner, we just bring along this little stool for her to stand on to give her a bit of extra height in the kitchen, which works pretty well. It's not perfect, but it gets the job done. What's potentially even more important than the amount of space this provides is how easy it is to set up, because you don't want to have to be mucking around on the side of the road just to get your bench space accessible. So with this one, there's no legs that fold down, there's no supports to install, no nothing. It's just a matter of sliding it out and it's good to go and ridiculously strong. So I built this using 227 kilo runners to try and over-engineer it a little bit, and I think that was worth doing so, because even if you factor in the weight of this build itself, I could still easily sit on this thing probably twice over and it'd be totally fine. But if you guys don't mind, I'm not going to try that. Number 2 is actually a bit of a controversial one, and that's my upright fridge. Now, I say controversial because I've done a couple of videos lately installing an aftermarket fan module to help air circulate within the fridge a little bit better. And every time I post those videos, I always get a couple of people commenting saying that I've put them off Bushman fridges and you shouldn't have to tinker around with something that costs that much money. And I get it, I definitely do, but for me it was always an upgrade rather than a fix, because honestly these fridges work perfectly fine stock standard, but the fan module just allows you to essentially overfill them or pack them way beyond the recommended limit, and that air will still circulate and give you a consistent temperature. Anyway, you can make up your own mind on that, but for now let's talk about upright fridges in general. So these weigh a fair bit less than your standard chest fridges, especially if you factor in a fridge slide. They take up less room in terms of footprint in the canopy setup. Obviously chest fridges are a fair bit shorter, but you can't really use that space on top if you need to access what's in your fridge. Granted, a fridge slide would probably still give you the option to use that space on top, but again, you're adding weight and also overall size. But the biggest advantage when it comes to upright fridges, in my opinion at least, is just how easy they make accessing your food. Honestly, I can't even tell you how much of a difference this makes compared to rummaging around in my old chest fridge. Everything is just neatly organized, and I can just remove a single item without disturbing the rest. Oh, and we get a neat little freezer up here too, which is actually surprisingly handy. Now, obviously there are a few drawbacks when it comes to upright fridges too, so they're a fair bit more expensive than chest fridges generally speaking. They use a hell of a lot more power. You can't use the same percentage of the internal capacity as you can with a chest fridge, because with a chest fridge you can kind of stuff until it's completely full, whereas this you're kind of confined to using the shelves. So an 85 litre sort of works out to be comparable to a 50 litre chest fridge or thereabouts, and every time you open the door on one of these you lose all your cold air. It just comes falling straight out, using yet more power to cool that air back down again. But you know what, even with all that considered, I'd still never go back to a chest fridge. Number 3 is a little bit of a quirky one, but it's actually this little bit of space in front of my fridge, which has turned out to be such a handy little storage area. Now, I chose not to build a false floor in my particular setup, and with how far I wanted to set the fridge back so it didn't hit the canopy door when it closed, it just created this small space that's actually recessed down below the fridge door. It's proven to be such a handy little storage place to chuck things like phones or headlamps, GoPro, any of that stuff that's kind of small and flat that the fridge door can swing over the top of. And it's doubly handy because my charge sockets are just down here as well, so we can plug things on charge, leave them sitting down there and out of the way, and the fridge door is still uninterrupted. Number 4 is that all things considered, this fit out is actually pretty lightweight. Now, of course, there are some exceptions to this. My wooden bench tops, for example, could easily be swapped to aluminium to save a bit of weight there, and that's something I would like to look at doing in future. But generally speaking, for the most part, this is a pretty lightweight setup. I decided not to build a false floor in here, which has definitely saved a fair bit of weight, and I've instead raised the fridge and the slide out bench on 50mm aluminium box tube to clear the canopy lip. The entire frame of my slide out bench is made using aluminium, my MRT pantry is aluminium, and these plastic storage drawers, as much as I'm not really a fan of them in a practical sense, they weigh absolutely nothing. Over on the other side, my 12-volt setup is run with a 120 amp hour lithium battery. And of course, one of the many advantages of lithium is just how light they are. They're about 1/5 of the weight of the equivalent AGM deep cycle batteries in terms of usable capacity. And all of that adds up, or doesn't add up, you get what I mean, because with vehicles like these, once you start adding big wheels, rooftop tents, bull bars, side steps, awnings, water tanks, and the list literally goes on forever, it really doesn't take long at all to approach your vehicle's GVM, even if that's been upgraded like mine has. So it definitely pays to keep the weight down where you can, and as a bit of a side benefit, you can just think about those fuel savings. And the 5th and final thing I love about this canopy setup is the general layout for cooking, because everything is literally within like one step to reach everything you need. So say I'm cooking up a storm, I'm standing here doing my general meal prep. I've got quick access up to all my ingredients in the storage drawers here. Got quick access to the fridge just here for any cold ingredients. One step to the right is my cooker for flipping my steaks or cooking some mean burgers, whatever's on the menu for that night. And then I can actually reach over this bench to access things in my slide out pantry here, get some salt and pepper, get the oil out, whatever I might need for cooking. And away we go, which is just honestly so convenient. I really enjoy cooking in this kitchen. Actually, the only thing I can't easily access is my water supply, because that's on a jerry can on the back of the canopy, which is a little bit annoying. I have to kind of, especially if this is fully extended, I have to literally like walk around the whole outside to fill up water. However, I've got some big plans for the water storage system in the future, so stay tuned for that. Well, those are my 5 favorite things about my DIY canopy setup. I hope that's given you guys an idea or two if you're in the planning stages of your very own setup. And if you are, the biggest piece of advice I can give you is to really just take your time with it and tackle everything one piece at a time. Because if you do it right, you'll enjoy it every single time you're out camping, and your mates will be jealous, so it's a win-win. I also wanted to say a massive thanks to everyone who's already signed up for the brand new Patreon to support the channel. It really means the absolute world to both Bianca and I. And a very special shout out to Damien Vandenberg on becoming our first official Explorer tier Patreon member, which is just absolutely huge. Mate, thank you so much for the support. It really goes a long way to helping the channel grow, and we really appreciate it. And that brings us to the end of today's episode. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.